The groundwork for massive quantitative easing, the likes of which we have never seen before, is currently being laid out, but only if you know where to look. Last week's FOMC meeting had everyone focused on a 25 basis point rate cut. But what if the real story was hidden in the quiet part? See, buried in that meeting was a single question, one that most of the mainstream media missed, a call out to the Fed's forgotten third mandate to keep long-term rates moderate. A mandate that, if invoked, gives cover to unlimited bond buying and the rapid, quiet devaluation of every dollar you hold. So the question now is, how quickly can we expect this to happen? Most people think of the Federal Reserve today as operating with a dual mandate: maximum employment and lower steady inflation, two goals that are at complete odds with one another when you throw in money printing, private interests, and of course, constant monetary meddling. But yet a third mandate has been on the books since the 1970s to keep long-term rates moderate, a mandate that the Fed usually downplays to avoid raising any fears around direct bond buying, which would fall under the umbrella of QE, quantitative easing. But here's why that old mandate suddenly matters a lot. 2 weeks ago, President Trump's newest Fed pick, Stephen Miron, pulled that old forgotten clause off the shelf during his Senate testimony, and I don't think that was any accident.
Congress wisely tasked the Fed with pursuing price stability, maximum employment, and moderate long-term interest rates.
In fact, many analysts saw this as a clear signal that the current administration is going to use this mandate to push down long-term rates. They could do this by enacting mass bond buybacks, where the U.S. will literally buy its own debt, thereby creating additional units of currency, devaluing all existing units of currency, directly stealing wealth from your savings, your checking, and your retirement. Or it could be that the U.S. takes it a step further, enacting YCC, yield curve control, a desperate move from central banks, where they set a ceiling on long-term rates, let's say 3% on a 10-year treasury. And what they're really promising is no matter how much demand for our debt drops, which we know it's dropping, they will be there. The Fed will be there to step in and buy as many bonds as necessary. What do you think? I want to hear from you. Do you think that the U.S. will be desperate enough to enact YCC? Do you think it's going to get that bad in general? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. But if you don't think it could happen here, it already has. During World War II, the U.S. was drowning in debt as the debt to GDP ratio exploded from 40% in 1941 to over 100% just 5 years later in 1946. They enacted YCC in order to keep borrowing costs low and to sustain the massive amount of money printing they were doing. But it came at a cost. Inflation ripped during this period to almost 20%. And yes, it saved the government, it saved the system, but it destroyed the savings of the American people. But today doesn't look much different. In fact, we have the highest level of debt to GDP ratio today since World War II, since that point in time. But the difference is that back then it was wartime funding, followed by an industrial productivity boom. Today, we don't have any of that. All we have are more dollars being printed, but each dollar is having a smaller impact on the economy. In fact, with $37 trillion in our debt, one of the fastest growing areas of expense is the interest itself. But this is even more concerning when you zoom out and realize that today's 10-year treasury yields, or the interest paid on our debt, is sitting at around 4%, which in the context of history is considered somewhat moderate. So the fact that we are drowning at these current rates tells us just how bad our debt crisis really is. If these yields were to rise a percent or two at a period in time when we have trillions of debt that needs to be refinanced, well, that could further escalate this debt spiral that we are in, where interest payments are now costing us more per year than our entire defense budget. This is why the White House is desperate to pin down these rates despite the severe inflation risk to you and I. But back to Powell. When he was asked about the Stephen Miron third mandate, he brushed it off, claiming that as long as the Fed was successful in keeping interest rates low and employment high, this third mandate would take care of himself, which is the answer I'd expect him to say, but let's be real. We saw it in 2008 when the Fed stepped in, and again in 2020 when there was panic around yields and they rolled out unlimited QE. Every time there's a whiff of trouble, the Fed is there ready to jump in. And the real joke here is that they position themselves as though they are the last line of defense. They are the ones who are going to prevent a crisis, when in reality, all modern economic and financial crises you can almost trace back to the Fed's doing at some point or another since their creation in 1913. All of which to say, this idea that the third mandate will somehow magically take care of itself if inflation rates are low is just simply not the case. It might have been the case previously, where if inflation rates are low, investors feel confident in these long-term rates because they don't believe that their profits are going to be inflated away. But today, that is just not the case. If short-term rates don't translate to lower long-term rates, we could see U.S. Treasury Scott Bessent and President Trump citing this third mandate, claiming that the Fed is not doing their job and really applying the pressure. In fact, I don't think it's a coincidence that the day after Stephen Myron's testimony hearing, when he brought up this long-forgotten third mandate, something that no one ever talks about, the next day, Scott Bessent did an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal, and guess what he cited? The third mandate. It's not difficult to imagine that the groundwork is being laid right now in front of our very eyes for a massive incoming QE push. In fact, Bank of America had a recent study that showed over half of global fund managers believe that the U.S. will be implementing yield curve control. That is wild. Many now speculate this is all part of a larger pump and dump, where the U.S. is going to spend, right? Keep printing, inflating all asset prices with it as part of that great melt up. And when the moment comes, they're going to push the system to the brink. When the crisis hits, whatever it might be, that's when the rug pull is going to happen. Whether it is a revaluation of the stablecoin theory being floated, whether it is a new digital currency, there are a variety of ideas of how this will happen. But one thing is clear. When it does, dollars, the fiat currency, US dollars, will be worth significantly less. And there will only be a small portion of people who are prepared for this. It will break into two categories. It will be the global elites, right? Those with inside information, those who always are okay because of their access and position. And it will be those who understood that this reset is accelerating and where we're going next, and had the foresight to protect themselves outside of that system before it was too late. Of course, when I talk about protecting yourself outside of the system, I am talking about physical gold and silver, real money, not this fiat currency that they clearly are doing everything they can to control and manipulate, to pump and spend and print. Again, all while devaluing each existing unit of currency. We've seen it done before. The last time, again, we did yield curve control. The last time we saw something like this, inflation ripped to almost 20%. Can you survive with 20% of your retirement, your savings being gone? And that's just over the course of 1 year, right? What's going to happen year over year over year? Can you live through that? Most people I know cannot, which is why I am always encouraging everyone to make sure you have a plan in place. I don't just say this for fun, right? I say it because I study this day in and day out. I see what's coming next. Your dollar is never going to be worth more than it is today. That is the bottom line. So if you have not already converted your dollars into gold and silver, if you don't have that insurance plan in place, now is the time to do it. True money, true wealth protection outside of this system, something they can't manipulate, control, or print more of. And if you already have gold and silver and you want a second opinion, we are here for you for that as well. Call us at the number below or scan the QR code. We also have a link in the description where you can set up a time to talk to one of our analysts. You can feel it happening. I can feel it happening. It is moving quickly, right? The signs are all there. We can see it all around us. They are actively laying this groundwork. They're telling us what they're going to do next, right? They are telling us in so many words what we can expect to happen. It is going to be more printing, more spending, and in my opinion, a rapid devaluation of the dollar. So get out now while your dollars still have some worth, right? Convert those into gold and silver, but make sure you have a plan in place to do so. Anyone can go out and buy, and I encourage you to get gold and silver. But again, how much, what kinds? Talk to someone who knows what they're doing, right? I really, really trust our expert analysts. I have learned personally so much from them. So again, scan the QR code, call us at the number below, or click the link in the description. Make sure you have your plan in place today. And if there's anyone in your life who would benefit from watching something like this, please like, subscribe, and share it with them. It helps us get the word out so much. And the more of us who understand what's happening, the stronger we can be together as a community. And in the meantime, I so appreciate you being here. I'm Taylor Kenny with ITM Trading, your trusted source for all things gold, silver, and lifelong wealth protection. Until next time.